Welcome to We Are Women, Unapologetically, the podcast that talks about the good, bad, ugly, and awesome. Careers, life transitions, confidence, and everything in between. Because shift happens, but you don't have to do it alone.
Hello, and welcome to We Are Women Unapologetically. My name is Jessica Cumming, and today I am joined by Gloria Bell, a seasoned leader, entrepreneur, and advocate for equality in technology. With over 40 years of experience spanning business, operations, communications, event management, and community building. She is the founder of the Women in Tech Summit and the Inspiring Tech Foundation. She is currently the director of operations at Zip Code Wilmington and serves as a board president of Philly Startup Leaders. Throughout her career, Gloria has championed inclusive innovation, empowering women, non-binary individuals, and underrepresented entrepreneurs to thrive. As a serial entrepreneur and consultant, she has guided startups, nonprofits, and enterprises in optimizing operations and digital strategy, while also serving as an educator and frequent speaker on women in tech, diversity, and community-driven leadership. Gloria, hello, and thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I believe it was 2.5, almost 3 years ago when we were first introduced. And it was through the Women in Tech Summit that you had hosted in North Carolina. And I remember that it was right after I had started my journey, and you welcomed me not only to the summit, but into your world as a friend and mentor with open arms. So first of all, I want to thank you for doing that,
Very
because you really
welcome.
did help me on this path. Now, would you mind telling the audience just a little bit about your story and how you went on your journey of being a woman in tech to starting this Women in Tech Summit and everything that you do to help women, non-binary people, and people that are underrepresented in the technology industry today?
Sure. So this story actually starts when I was about 6 years old, but not the traditional story you hear from most women in tech. Mine had a few more twists and turns. When I was about 6, I was in first grade. My father was getting his master's degree in data processing. He was an Army officer, and they had sent him to school to become the Army's computer expert. He walked me into a room at Georgia State that was the computer. Literally, it was the entire room, and I was fascinated. So, fast forward, we were always the first ones to have the newest technology in our home. Took a class on coding where we learned to code on punch cards. So, I am now officially aging myself, which I embrace every minute of all 60 years. And I loved technology. I loved computers. I loved all of that. But at that time, I didn't have any female role models. Every woman I knew who worked doing all of that, all they did data entry. They didn't actually work with the computers. And I had counselors in high school who said, well, you're only so-so at math. You couldn't pass calculus or trig. So that's really not a field for you. So went to college to do something completely different. Went to college to be a teacher. Was going to teach English and theater. Came out of college and ended up in the insurance industry. Worked in that industry for almost 20 years. But along the way, never lost my passion for what we call tech now. I was always the first one to work on when we were getting new computers in the office or new software. I would volunteer to be part of those teams that tested it and helped install it. It wasn't a career path. Along with working in the insurance claims industry, I owned and ran a bunch of small businesses with friends and family members, had a construction company for a while, had a cleaning service, and then was working with a friend of mine on his technology project management company. And what he did was he connected developers, designers with companies that needed websites built, needed software built. And that was when it hit me. This is really what I loved. I was very tired, very burnout on my prior career. And we were working with a lot of freelancers, small dev shops, and really great, talented people who didn't really know much about running a business. And that happened to be something I was good at. So I quit my 21-year career and I cashed in my 401k and said, one of three things is going to happen. Either I'm going to be wildly successful and make a ton of money. I'm going to fall flat on my face and in 6 months go through all my money and go begging for my old job back. Or it's going to be somewhere in the middle. And I've been incredibly blessed that it's been mostly somewhere in the middle. There have been some times when it's been a little lean, but mostly somewhere in the middle. And I started a consulting company working with tech startups on how to run operations in their company. It pivoted into a couple of other different kinds of consultancies. But what happened in making those transitions was I got involved in these new worlds, these new communities of entrepreneurship and technology, met some of the most amazing people who are still very good friends. And in having discussions with a lot of the other women that I met working in entrepreneurship and technology, we would be talking about the events we were going to and how every event we went to, we saw each other. But we knew there was a lot more women working in tech, in business roles and in technical roles that just, they weren't coming out to the events that were happening. And at that time, developers went to developer events and salespeople, well, you would kind of joke the salespeople went to everything, but the marketers would go to the marketing things and the finance people went to the finance things. So we wanted to do something to bring our local community together because you don't get growth, you don't make progress unless you've accumulated a mass of people. And so we held the first Women in Tech Summit. It's now 18 years ago. It was intended to be a one-day, one-time event in Philadelphia to bring these communities together, to basically cross-pollinate the networks of the 7 or so of us that kind of came together to put this event on. It was hugely popular. And over the next few years, it grew to be a national conference that was being held in 5 cities across the US for multiple days. Speakers, tens of thousands of attendees. And the thing I'm most proud of it is that we brought people like you together and gave you the inspiration and the connections. I have stories like yours from hundreds of people that the connection that they made, the thing that they learned, it got them the new job. It encouraged them to start their own company. It sent them on a new skill path. It was all of those stories. Along its growth, I ended up running it primarily by myself. People can only volunteer for so long before life starts getting in the way. We also were the primary fundraiser for another nonprofit called Tech Girls that was working with middle school girls and showing them the opportunities available in technology. So it has had this kind of winding path, but a tremendous impact and an amazing community that still comes together. WITS is currently on pause because we're envisioning what the future of it's going to look like. And really excited because we have some new partners coming in and hopefully going to be able to make some announcements in the next few months about some new things coming. But doing that work also opened a lot of other doors for me. It actually is what led me to Zip Code Wilmington and getting to work here with people wanting to transition into careers in technology, wanting to make that improvement in their life and in their salaries and follow things they're passionate about. And I got to meet people like you, which that's been the best part of the last 20 years for me, has been all of the people I've gotten to meet, the friendships I've gotten to make. I never want there to be a young girl or a woman who felt the way I felt in high school when I was told that's not for you. I want to open the doors. I want to create the pathways. And more than anything else, I want to inspire somebody to take that leap. So that's the work that I do, that I'm very blessed to do.
If there is anyone out there that's thinking, I know that I really want to break into the tech industry, what advice would you give them, regardless of age? Because I know that it happens multiple times in our lives.
The one piece of encouragement I will give them, I taught myself how to code at 40. And I did it because I was tired of asking other people to fix my website. So it is completely possible for anyone. The one piece of advice I would give is, one, don't ignore that voice. That voice is there for a reason. Get yourself educated. Discover what it is. Like if that voice is sending you in a certain direction, really learn what the opportunities are and what it takes to get there, so that when you make that decision, you're making that educated decision. I talked about leaving my insurance career and starting my own company. That was a year-long process. It wasn't like I woke up today and, quit my job and started a company. It took me a year of laying the groundwork to make sure that I could do that in a manner that fit me, that was responsible for me. Everybody else can give you advice. Everybody else is going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. Follow your head, follow your heart, follow your instinct. Take the pieces that work for what you want to do and ignore the pieces that don't. If I had listened to all the friends that I had before I made that big career transition, who were all going, you were walking away from a stable career. I was making really good money, really good bonuses, tons of vacation, all the perks, all the things, to take a risk. And they could not fathom why I would do that. If I had listened to them, I would never have had all the amazing experiences that I've had. I would never have had the job satisfaction that I have. To go to sleep every night, to wake up every morning knowing that the things I do change people's lives, there's nothing better than that. And if the only life you're changing by making that choice is your own, hallelujah. Good for you. One is better than none.
I'm curious, have you had any of those naysayers come back to you and say they are envious of the risk that you took?
No, I actually lost touch with most of them because they could not comprehend why I would do this. Some of them were friends and we've stayed in touch for a while, but the vast majority of them completely lost touch with. There's a couple that I've reconnected with in the last year or so who look at what I have done in that time period and they're amazed. I kind of want to say, why? You knew me. I'm no different. I am a different person than I was back then, but at my core, I'm not. So why are you so amazed with what I accomplished?
A lot of times what happens is people doubt you. They break away. They don't believe in it. They may even talk behind your back. And then
Yeah.
all of the sudden, whether it be a year later, 5 years later, 10, 20, whatever it is, they come back and they realize, holy cow, like this woman put her mind to it. She said she was going to do something. I talk about that because something similar happened to me. There was people that thought, oh my gosh, you're going to leave the corporate world. You're going to do something on your own. I said, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do. And similar to you, I wanted to create something that I did not necessarily have when I was in corporate for other women to be a blueprint. It is interesting how many times it's just like, you didn't believe in me then, but don't come back and try to make up for it now. You have mentioned that you have had multiple pivots throughout your career. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? Because we are in an age where it's almost like pivoting careers in a completely different direction is frowned upon, but that's that old mentality, that old mindset. And we need to be able to move with the industry changes. We need to be able to pivot quickly and show our resilience. Can you talk a little bit about your career pivots and what you've learned from it?
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that's really important to remember, the industry changes so quickly. And that can be the tech industry. That actually can be any industry right now. We used to think of these old industries that were slow. None of them are. I mean, if we just look at how all of them are trying to pivot with AI right now, no one can be slow because tech is a part of every industry right now. So I starting to see that mentality kind of slow down. It's still out there. And, I think we're all still struggling with it. I've kind of led a little bit of a blessed life since I made the first big career transition, going from insurance into tech and into consulting. Most of my pivots have been because I was getting to follow something that I was fascinated by. So my first consulting company, it was called Red Stapler Consulting. So I hope there's a few people out in the audience that actually get the reference. It was working with freelancers and dev shops and tech startups on their operations and on their process and actually putting process to what they did. I was personally fascinated. Twitter was just coming into the forefront, and Facebook had only been open to the public for a little while. And I was personally fascinated with how technology was changing how we communicate. From my own personal fascination, dove in, learning everything I could about social media, getting involved with a lot of other people involved in social media, most of whom had marketing backgrounds, which then led me into, okay, let me learn about marketing. Let me learn about digital marketing. Let me learn about digital transformation and digital strategy. So 6 months into starting my first consulting company, almost every phone call I got was, you understand this Twitter thing. Can you come help us? So that was pivot one. I went from doing operations consulting to doing social media consulting and speaking and teaching. I got invited to help write part of the curriculum for a program at Drexel University around social media, and then got invited to come teach that program. It's been this wonderful synergy of following things I'm interested in, that I'm passionate about. That's how the Women in Tech Summit was born, which was my full-time job for many years. That's how founding the Inspiring Tech Foundation was born. I want to take these opportunities beyond the Women in Tech Summit. How else can we create opportunities for underserved groups? I think that is actually the biggest piece of advice I would give people on pivoting is, don't necessarily make the pivot because you think it's the thing you're supposed to do. Make sure it's the thing that you're being called to do, that you're following the thing that you're really interested in, because that's going to lead you to the next thing. Doors, the opportunities that open, because people can tell when you are out talking about or producing work or doing something that you really believe in or that you're very passionate about. Mine happens to be in service to people. There are people who are passionate about writing code. And I'm like, go for it. Learn that new language, do that new thing, make that pivot there. I've watched designers pivot into developers and developers pivot into designers. That's how UX was born. Was all of a sudden you had these people who knew how to do both things, and they're like, how do we meld them and create better experiences for people? So follow that thing that you feel like you're being called to, that fascinates you, that really makes you want to learn, makes you curious. Like, curiosity for me is the biggest thing. If you're going to pivot, let it be because you're curious.
I heard you say that you went from social media marketing to digital marketing, all of these different things, and they all had some similarities to them, but they were all different. So what I'm hearing from
Yeah.
you is look at the transferable skills that people have and how
Yeah.
they can take what they've learned thus far and keep going. I know that I've had other guests that have talked about this, but oftentimes we find people that are thinking that whatever skills that they've learned stay in that job role. And it's hard to look at the transferable skills that they can take with them. When you were looking at your different roles and what you wanted to do, was there hesitation about you not knowing enough of the required skills? Or did you just say, hey, I know that this is what I bring to the table? How did that work? Because I know that there's probably people out there that want to make the transition, but they're scared. They don't know if they have what it takes in order to make it.
Trust me, I understand that all too well. Imposter syndrome has set up resonance in me multiple times, feeling like I don't know enough, I don't have the right skills. I also know the one thing I hold on to for myself is I'm curious. I am also a great learner. I learned how to do those other things. I can learn how to do these things. And I think that's one of the things that we dismiss a lot is we go, okay, well, we learned this thing and it fits over here and it doesn't really apply to this thing. Well, you learned that thing. You can learn this thing. I taught myself how to code. I taught myself HTML and CSS at 40. You know, if I can do that, anybody can learn anything. But I think the other thing that we have a tendency to dismiss is getting creative with this is the skills I have, these are the things I learned, and we limit them to just what we've learned for our job. We don't think about all the rest of the things in our lives. If you're a mom or you run a household or you volunteer somewhere or you're active in your church or you play sports, there are skills that you have learned in everything you do in your life. And if you start looking at those, okay, here's the list of things it says I need to be able to do. Well, it says I need to be able to do this. As a coach or as an athlete, I did this. Guess that's pretty similar. Or I learned how to use this one piece of software at work and it's wanting me to know these three. Well, if I can learn this piece of software, why can't I learn these three pieces of software? And being honest with yourself about what do I know? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do to learn it? When you look at the thing you want to transition to, or you look at the new job description, or the new skill that you want to learn, or the new hobby you want to take up, you don't have to fulfill 100% of that. I'm like, is there things on there I can learn how to do? Yeah, okay, I'm in. It's funny because at Zip Code, we teach people who want to do career transitions. We have a Java program and a data program. And part of what we work with them doing is looking at their prior careers and then looking at where they want to go now that they've gone through our program and helping them translate a lot of those skills. And it's exactly what I was just talking about. What is having worked in this restaurant as doing the customer service and being detail oriented and having a routine and a procedure? How does that translate into being a developer? And I think it's a matter of we just have to open our minds a little wider. And I know I'm making this sound really easy, and I know it is not, because trust me, I have struggled with it myself multiple times. But it's also just you learned something, you can learn something else. You did something, you can do something else. You've gotten through 100% of the bad days you've ever had. So it's kind of that same concept. You got through that, you can get through something else if you want it bad enough. That's the key. You have to want it.
I think that we've all gone through situations where we're like, I really want this. And then it didn't work out, or you decided to pivot, or whatever happened. Because you made the transition sound easy. Are there any transitions that you have gone through that you really thought this is what I wanted, or this is something that was meant for me? And then you had to take a step back and say, is this still what I want?
So, yeah, several. When I first made the first big career transition, figuring out how to network, figuring out how to get clients. I hate sales. But when you work for yourself, That's the reality. You have to sell. Um, so, there were those moments where I can't do this. And then I had to sit down and ask myself, why didn't I want to do it? What was it I didn't like about it? Why did I think I couldn't do it? And I had to make a choice of I can have my old life or I can have this new life. And either one of them was a valid choice, but I had to make a choice. And making a choice sometimes means doing hard things, and we can do hard things. There have been a few other points where I've chosen to take jobs that seem like my dream job. And it wasn't for multiple reasons, some having to do with me, some having to do with the organization. It's happened a few times since I made my career transition, and it has stopped me and made me go, why am I going down this path? There have been moments, multiple moments in the last 20 years when it's like, I had a really good, secure career with a really steady paycheck, making really good money. And you rebuild as you need to rebuild. Everyone has a different risk tolerance, and you need to find yours. But what no one tells you is you don't find yours until you push yourself to the edge of what your risk tolerance is. You think you know what it is, and every time I thought I've known what my tolerance for disappointment, failure, insecurity, imposter syndrome, all of it, every time I thought I knew what that limit was, I'd get to that limit and realize I needed to reevaluate. Because there have been a couple times where I've voluntarily taken a step back. I want to work for myself. I want to do work that I find meaningful. So take a step back, do something else for a little while, and then I can take the 2 steps forward. The other thing, I don't think we tell people enough. I don't think we give people permission enough to do this, which is there's no set point to evaluate what you're doing. You can make that evaluation at any point. It's not, we talk about 3-year and 5-year and 10-year goals. For me, it's much more short term. I reevaluate what I'm doing on a regular basis. There are moments in time when the anxieties ratchet up, and I'm doing it every day. But I think we need to make sure people know it is really okay. New Year's Day is not necessarily the day that you got to make those choices. When you're writing those goals for 3 years, and 3 years is a long time. It's also a very short period of time. Give yourself permission to stop and say, is that really what I want? Am I doing what I want to be doing? A lot of people talk about follow your passions, money will come. To a certain degree, it's true. But we spend so much time doing work, doing hobbies, whatever it is you want to learn. We spend so much time doing it. If you're not doing something that makes you feel good, feel fulfilled, feel whatever positive emotion works for you, content is good. Like, I have a friend, work is a means to everything else in his life. So all he needs is he needs to do work that makes him content, that doesn't frustrate him every single day. And he's fine, because then he has the means to go do the things that actually make him happy. And I'm like, that's a good life. That's a really good life. That works for him. For me, I need work where I feel like I'm in service, where I feel like I'm making a difference. And there's trade-offs for that. And I learned to be willing to make the trade-offs.
I love what you just said about reevaluating and evaluating, because it took me back to my corporate days. You typically had a mid-year review, or at the very least, an end of year review. And you look back on what you had accomplished in the past year. You're selling yourself to your bonus. But, we do get asked a lot, what are your plans? Where do you want to go next? What do you want to do next? But there's never an evaluation question of how happy are you in your current role. I think about that because how many people would have maybe even said, yes, they are happy, but it at least planted a seed in them after to really evaluate themselves how happy they were. And at that point, could it start a conversation to say, okay, I'm happy for now, but I know that this is what I want to do next. Instead of just asking people, what do you want to do next, right? Helping them pave the path to whatever it is that really lights them up. That's how I like to put it. It just reminds me that maybe the way that we have conversations with people and how often we evaluate or reevaluate needs to change. But then also, it reminds me of this workshop that I did not too long ago with vision boards. And I said to them, I said, don't just put the end goal. Because when you just put the end goal of where you want to go, your brain doesn't know where to start. But when you put the small steps in there, your brain knows exactly what to do. To someone, a small step could be a giant leap. How would you say this is a small step that you could take?
Definitely have some advice on that one. But I want to go back to something you said real quickly because you sparked something that I think we also need to include in that question of how happy are you in your job or how satisfied are you in your job. We also need to be asking about what parts of your job are you satisfied in and what parts are you not satisfied in? Because it's the things you're satisfied in that are going to lead you to what's the next thing. I think about this a lot because I have a friend who he's trying to figure out what the next thing is. And there are parts of his job he loves, and it's a very analytical job. It's a lot of the other, the reporting, the meetings, that kind of thing. He does them and he does them well because it's what his job entails. But I've been steering him in the look at the things you really, really enjoy and what's the next thing you could do that focuses on those. And I think that we need to give people permission to ask themselves that question too. But back to what you were asking, the small steps. So, yes, you are correct. Most of the time when I've made a transition or I've taken a big risk, I've kind of laid those small steps in place. There have been a few times where I'm just like, I'm stepping off the cliff. This opportunity is here. I don't have time to figure it out. We're going to step off and we're going to build a plane while we're flying. That's the way it's going to go. I think when we think about career transitions, when we think about taking big risks, when we think about starting something new, we think of that as a single thing instead of if I want to do this, I need to learn this first. I went to college to be a teacher, so part of it's my educator's brain. Like you can't give them everything at once. You give it to them in small parts. And I think what that will serve people really well, and it took me a very long time to learn how to do this. Here's my big thing. What is one thing I can do now? What is one thing I can do 6 months from now? What is one thing I can do a year from now? Not put pressure on yourself to have to learn it all at once or to make that move all at once. Like, if you want to make a complete industry transition for your career, you need to take the time to educate yourself on what is that industry really about? What jobs are out there? This is one of those times where ChatGPT, whoever else you want to use, whichever one of the other AI mechanisms out there, this is where it can be really helpful. You can throw in a prompt of, I want to do XYZ. Give me a summary of this industry. What are some jobs relevant to this? What are the skills that are needed for each of those jobs? It gives you something to then go back and evaluate for yourself. It gives you those small pieces. Small pieces lead to small steps. Because when you take great big steps, sometimes there's a cliff on the other side of those steps. that we're not seeing because we're moving so fast. Give yourself permission to go slow or go fast, because sometimes just the right thing is going to come in front of you and you're like, I got to take this leap. I don't know what's on the other side, but I'm okay with that. This same friend that's figuring out what he wants to do next, he has a fantastic way of looking at it in that, what's the best, what's the worst, what's the thing I can tolerate, what's the thing I can't tolerate. And if you know those things and you're secure in those things, if it's financial, what can you risk? Are you somebody that can't take a financial risk? Like that stops your heart, gives you anxiety and all of those things. Well, then how do you do the slow build? I think we all consider it, but maybe it's less of a consideration. And maybe you can move a little faster. You have to know yourself really, really well. And you have to be willing to get to know yourself really, really well before you can do some of those things. If you don't know who you are, what you want, what you can handle, what you can't handle, all of those things, it's going to be a really rocky, rocky ride. But if you've taken the time to do that work, then it's easy to have those conversations with yourself about what's next, where am I going, what can I handle, what can't I handle, what's the next step I should take. You have to be able to have that conversation with yourself because no one else is going to give you the answer.
I put together a guide for people that are going through career transitions. And those are some of the things that I talked about is what are your non-negotiables? What are your like to haves? What is your financial runway? How do you calculate your financial runway? What are your transferable skills? So I will put that in the show notes. And that was not something that I was planning on discussing today, but it fits right in because you hit the
Yeah.
nail on the head as far as someone having to be willing to listen to themselves. It's so easy to get caught up into what everyone else is saying. The other thing that I wanted to add on is when you were mentioning the AI and chat GPT and putting in the industry and the different skills required, another thing someone can do is look at the job description and then look at your resume and ask it to translate what does transfer over and where are the skills that you do need to still learn. So I just wanted to add on to that too. We've talked a lot about career transitions, and right now the economy, the way that it is, we have seen more people looking for jobs than we have in a long time. We have seen it taking longer than before. I know numerous people that it used to take 3 to 6 months to get a job. I have seen people that have taken pay cuts. I've seen people that have moved from large corporations to smaller ones, and then the job roles have changed. I have seen people that have job searched for over a year and a half. There have been people that have been looking at over 100 or even 200 applications being submitted, people being ghosted after interviews. I'm curious to know two things. Number one, are you seeing that with the people that you're working with in career transitions? That's the first part. And the second part is, what advice do you give these people? Because it's challenging right now.
Unfortunately, we are seeing some of that, and not just in the program that I work with, but in general, people I know making career transitions. It's just taking a little longer. I mean, I was there myself. I separated from a company and we were in transition with the Women in Tech Summit trying to decide what to do next because it was not the best time to try and relaunch something. We needed to re-envision it before we could relaunch it. So I needed to find something else to do and needed income. And it took me 8 months. And that was with the experience I have, the wide range of skill sets I have. So one of the things I want to tell people, it's very discouraging. It is very easy to get discouraged. So one of the things you have to do is you need to make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people who will lift you up, with people who will remind you you are good at what you do. You need to employ your network. Right now, the jobs are not necessarily going to be found by answering that job ad. They're going to be found because someone you know knows someone who knows someone. So you need to be, and this is where I want to caution everybody because it is a mistake we all made, including myself. We wait and make those connections with our network when we need them instead of all the time. And this is where I'm going to throw a pitch to our mutual friend, Steve Harper, who his whole philosophy is you have to constantly be creating ripples. You have to stay connected to your network so that those ripples are always spreading. And I think that's something that it's incumbent to do all the time because when you finally do need that network, you need them to have your back. You need them to be the one out there promoting you, be the ones up there uplifting you. Because this is not the first time this economy's been like this. I went through this when I was in my insurance career. It took me 22 months at one point to find a job. This is cyclical. It's going to happen. Make sure you're preparing yourself for those possibilities by building a good, strong network. When you're in it right now, make sure that you are being as open as possible to all the potential opportunities. What I watch a lot of people do and what I try and help them out of, and I know you do the same thing, is they get very focused on this is the job I have done. I am only looking for this job. Or I'm only looking for this career level. I'm only looking for this salary range. This is where it goes back to looking at all of those skills that you have. Take all of those skills. What else can you do? This is where I ran into a little bit of trouble when I was job hunting because everybody's like, well, what job are you looking for? And I couldn't give them a job title because there was probably 20 that I could do, that I was qualified for, that I was interested in. They all fit skill sets that I had. So make sure you're not limiting yourself to, I can only do this one thing. I only know this one thing. No, look at all of those skills. If you need help, go to 3 people you trust, maybe 3 people you've worked with before that you're still friends with and say, what do you think I'd be good at beyond what I used to do? Have them give you some suggestions. Throw a list of skills and interests. Do the things you're interested in too into ChatGPT and say, give me a list of jobs that match these skills and these interests, or give me a list of industries. The other thing, especially for my technologists and people that have worked in tech out there, is please remember every company is a tech company right now. Does not mean you have to go to work for the Apples and the Dells and the Facebooks and the, long list of others. And it's back to knowing yourself. What's your risk tolerance? How much of a pay cut can you afford to take? Or are you willing to take? How much of a career level change? Some of my most fascinating jobs have come because I was willing to make a career level change, both up and down. Sometimes that step, what seems like a step back, is actually not a step back. It's a step in a new direction that'll take you even higher than you were before. So, and do not be afraid to ask for help. We all too often go, well, I'm ashamed because I don't have a job and I'm still looking and it's been 10 months. And no, the people that care about you are people in your network. And the reality is most people in general, they want to be of help. Let them be. Tell them how they can be.
I think that's very important because so many people are willing to help, but they don't know how. People don't know what you need unless you tell them. It could just be a simple introduction. It could just be having coffee, right? Just being there for someone. So I highly encourage, if anyone's out there listening that has not utilized their network lately, to utilize your network. Tell your network what you need and allow them to show up for you. And if someone is out there as part of their network and knows someone that has been in a career transition, reach out to them. Ask them what they need. Allow them to tell you, because it is a two-way street when it comes to networking. Steve is great when it comes to the ripple effect and how you never know the ripple that you're going to create in the world. And the people that you may not think about helping you in that moment, if that person crosses your mind, it is for a reason. So it never hurts to reach out. I actually had a senior VP that told me, check in every now and then. Let me know how you're doing. And I have reached out to him a couple of times. It's ironic because that person crossed my mind this morning before we started recording. So that is my reminder. And now I'm going to put it on my to-do list to check in with that person for nothing else, just to say, hey, how are you? You know, because you never know what that other person is going through either.
Yep, exactly.
Gloria, I want to ask you, is there anything that we have not talked about or any questions that I haven't asked you that you would like to address with the audience?
So, the thing I love most about what you are doing is the way you are phrasing it unapologetically. I remember my grandmother, and I know we've all heard this from multiple different places, but I remember my grandmother when I was younger. It's a lot better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. But I think we all need to take a step back and look at, where are we waiting for permission? Where are we not unapologetically living our life? What's the thing that you want to do that you keep saying, well, when I have time, or after the kids are grown, or when I retire? If it is on your mind, it's on your mind for a reason. So explore what that reason is. If it's on your heart, it's on your heart for a reason. Explore what that reason is. Is there something that you need, do, say, learn, whatever it is? Because the value of living your life unapologetically, it is hard to put in words what a difference that makes in you. And what we forget is, when it makes a difference in us, it makes a difference in everyone around us. My sons were in high school when I made my career transition. So they went from mom who had a stable 9-to-5 job, making really good money, not a whole lot that they asked for, to mom working for herself, hustling, like hustling, because any of us who've started a business know it's a lot of work. It is the hardest job you will ever have. Most rewarding, but hardest. And making virtually no money, which meant there were a lot of things that shifted in our lives. I used to feel tremendous guilt about that. It was probably one of the things that made me stop the most often and say, should I quit? And then they got older, and they actually thanked me because they said, it was tough. We're not going to say we liked it all the time, but you taught us something about following the things that are important to us, about working hard, about being our own person, thinking for ourselves, that we probably could not have learned otherwise. And to have your grown children recognize that, that was when it hit me that this impacts everyone around you, because you become a different person. Sometimes friends are going to fall off. I have had relationships that could not sustain me being an entrepreneur. But the ones that are meant to be there, they get enriched because you are now a more fulfilled version of yourself. And if that's what you're putting out there, in whatever way, if there's a hobby you want to pursue that you've been putting off, if there's a job transition that you want to make, if you decide, I don't want to be in management anymore, I want to take a step back to being an individual contributor because that's where I feel more fulfilled. It's not just you it impacts, it's everybody. Let yourself be the best version of yourself, whatever that means, because that's not asking for forgiveness. That's being unapologetic. That is being the truest version of yourself. And there is nothing better for you or for everybody around you.
I love the way that you just said that. Let yourself be the best version of yourself. We oftentimes get into our own way. And when we get out of our own way, it is amazing the things that happen for us if we allow them. So thank you. If anyone would like
welcome.
to get in contact with you after,
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Gloria Bell. I'm very easy to find. Drop me a note that you're reaching out because you heard the podcast, because I am a little selective about my connections. But happy to connect with anybody who has questions. Feel free to send me a message. And they can also reach me at gloria@startupleaders.org if you want to email me. Always excited to meet new people, learn something new. Happy to give advice when I can. But more than that, I just want to hear your stories. Everybody's always got such great stories about where they're going and what they've done. And I want to hear those.
Speaking of stories, I want to end with this. This comes back to being unapologetically living your life and allowing yourself to live your best life. What she did post on LinkedIn is that by the end of 2027, Gloria wants to appear on a TEDx talk. So I have to say, Gloria, I am there with you. I have not put that out into the universe prior, but I am not only cheering you on, but I am right there. That is one of the goals that I am looking forward to in the future as well. If anyone is listening that does have any connections with the TEDx stage, please feel free to reach out to Gloria in regards to that, because her stories is very powerful and she is all about empowering others that don't necessarily have the voice to do so. So, Gloria, I want to thank you again for coming on the show today. And for all of the listeners and watchers out there, if you found this conversation beneficial, like, share it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And until next time, stay fierce, stay bold, but most importantly, stay unapologetically you.